Welcome to Real Talk with Tina and Ann. I am Ann, and today we have the very talented Leslie Rasmussen, a woman whose words have lit up both television screens and bookshelves. She was born and raised in Los Angeles and is a proud UCLA grad who went on to write for some of the funniest names in show business: Burt Reynolds, Roseanne Barr, Norm Macdonald, and Drew Carey, just to name a few, which, by the way, is very impressive. I thought that was really cool. Her writing credits stretch from hit sitcoms to beloved shows like The Wild Thornberrys and Sweet Valley High. And it doesn't stop there. She's been published more than 20 times in the Huffington Post, and she speaks on panels about female empowerment and is a proud member of the Writers Guild of America and Women in Film. Leslie is an award-winning novelist with titles like After, Happily Ever After, and The Stories We Cannot Tell, both of which earned her well-deserved praise. But today, we're diving into her newest novel, When People Leave: Love, Lies, and Finding the Truth, a book that took me on a ride that I did not want to get off. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Anne. This is great.
I found myself completely immersed in the emotional unraveling of this beautifully broken family. The heartbreak was real, the secrets were raw, and the journeys of these three daughters was deeply human and profoundly relatable. Each sister brought something different to the story. There was grief, resilience, regret, and hope. And I felt like I was sitting in that house with them, sifting through memories and truths that they never knew they needed to face.
Well,
What
thank you. That's great. That's what I wanted.
yeah, what struck me the most was how loss revealed so much of their own unhealed, conditioned responses, and how important it is to embrace every part of the journey, no matter how hard, so we can evolve and become a better version of ourselves and become different than the dysfunction that raised us. The story is about more than saying goodbye. It's about saying hello to the points of ourselves that we've buried for too long. It's about how love can change as we evolve and grow. And most of all, it's a powerful reminder that sometimes the truth doesn't destroy, it sets us free. So, I would like to start with, this story encapsulates so many of us, and there were so many strong themes that wove through this novel, things that we talk about on this podcast all the time. And I would like to start with the quote that you etched in the beginning of your book: when there's a breakdown in the family, it's the ones that love you the most that hurt you the deepest. Anyway, how does this quote reflect the heartbeat of your story?
Well, it's so true that, in marriages and relationships, you kind of become vulnerable and you give yourself to
Mm,
somebody. And when you do that, that's the person that can actually hurt you the most.
yes.
And people shock you. Including your parents. And in this story, that's kind of what happens. But the love that you have for somebody makes them able to hurt you deeply. And
Yes.
but you still have to love. You can't go through life without loving. So you
Yeah.
kind of take that in and say, well, I know that if I really love this person, they can hurt me. And you take that risk.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I've always said, if you can be hurt deeply, then you have loved deeply. It's just part of life. And these sisters really went through it. I mean, one of the things that I absolutely love about your book is how you don't shy away from anything. There is loss, there is suicide, there is addiction, there's identity, there's trauma, mental health, family lies. I mean, it is all there, woven into this story in a way that feels so human. And you explore how pain shapes us, both as
Mhm.
individuals and as a family unit, and you ask the kind of quiet, powerful questions that most of us have asked ourselves at some point, and lots of times don't even want to talk about it. But one of the most gripping threads is family secrets. So often, parents think that they're protecting their children by hiding painful truths, but these secrets end up shaping a child's identity. And in your book, this theme runs so deep. Can you talk about how you approached writing about family secrets and why they matter and how they shape us?
Sure. You know, I didn't know about any major family secrets in my life, but there were little
Okay.
things that as an adult came out that I said, like, what? What are you talking about? I've never heard that.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized when I started to think about it, those secrets can affect you even if you don't know what those secrets are, which I thought was
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. I mean, in these sisters' lives, I'm not going into the major secrets, but
Mm-hmm.
they're all dealing with abandonment and they
Okay.
don't know that the decisions that they have made in their lives are because of that. And so
Mm-hmm.
they turn out into these people as they become adults, they're all in their 30s, and they realize later on, they realize, oh my God, I made decisions in my life that just seem like decisions, but they actually
Mm-hmm.
were based on a past that they didn't even know about.
Exactly.
So I thought that was a really interesting thing. And I also, I had both my parents, so I wasn't abandoned, but I also know a lot of people that were in the foster care system.
Okay.
And when I talked to, especially a very close friend of mine, and when I talked to her about the foster care system, she had parents. They put her in the foster care system because they just didn't want to deal with her when she was like 10.
Oh
And
boy.
it turned out in the end to be a better place for her. I mean, she ended up in a good place and somebody who
Mm-hmm.
took her in and helped her get to college. But during all that time, she has tremendous abandonment issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking a lot about that when I wrote this book. And
Okay.
the sisters all do have different things. The oldest is a sober alcoholic. The middle one is in a relationship that should have ended a long time ago, but she just doesn't end it. And
Mm-hmm.
the youngest one basically followed her mother, where she
Mm-hmm.
married very, very young, but she also married somebody the only person she ever dated. And she
Mm-hmm.
gave up her career and she had 4 kids very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so she followed her mother, but she's also sort of thinking like, well, is this the life I'm going to lead forever? Things do come up. I mean, we know we have children. I mean, at a certain point, it comes up to you where you think, well, now what? What am I going to do? Is this where I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
go? Is this what I'm going to do? I gave up something. In my case,
Mm-hmm.
I gave up sitcom writing to raise my kids, which I'm very happy I did, but I've always missed it. So there's that loss also of the life you had before. And,
Yes.
there's a lot of loss in this in different ways,
Oh, there is.
but I was very concerned about making sure there was a lot of lightness in the book. So
Right.
I have 2 sisters, and
Okay.
I wanted to write a book about sisters for a long time, but I didn't want my sisters to think that they were
It
anything
was
like
about
these
them.
women. So they're
Yeah.
none of us. They're so different. None of us have any of these issues or anything. But I loved the dialogue between my sisters and I and how we get
Okay.
along. And siblings, I think siblings have a lot to show each other, to teach each other. And
Mm-hmm.
I think siblings also have funny relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love their dynamics. It was a very fun part of the book, watching them interact with each other. And that's so interesting because that you did pull it from different parts of your life, even though it wasn't your life. You took it from others around you.
I
And I
did.
was adopted, my kids were adopted, and I very much understood the abandonment part of it within that was weaving throughout your book. And I actually loved it because even though you didn't live it, you portrayed it very well.
Thank you. I did do research and talking to people. I have a friend who's in AA and she's sober, and I talked to her a
Okay.
lot. And so I knew a lot about AA that I could weave in there and how she felt. Um, but yes, I do take from my life all the time, but it's not necessarily, from my life as people. It's some of the dialogue, some of the stuff that comes from my childhood, the conversations with the sisters, like over the salads, who likes what and who doesn't like what, and they all think somebody
Yes.
else likes something. That's all from my childhood.
Yeah. Well, when the story was unraveling, the three women who we said are sisters, they discover that basically their entire lives were a lie, which you touched on. But what I loved is that no matter how deep the lies got, that it left room for them to heal together. And so, can you talk about not just the relationships that you touched on, but how they work together through this journey?
Well, the one thing I also wanted to make sure was they worked together, but they didn't. because grief is
Okay.
so all over the place. So sometimes
Hmm.
one sister's angry and one sister's sad, and sometimes they're all sad, and sometimes they're all like, "What's going on?" Um, because I kept thinking, well, I lost my father 9 years ago, and I lost him, for medical reasons. So it wasn't suicide, but I was angry and at him for leaving. Do you need to?
Hmm.
So even though it wasn't his fault, I was still had an anger in me that was like, why did you leave me? Why did you go?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
was also very sad. And
Yes.
so I think that in their case, because of the way the mother, they think everything's great and she takes
Yes.
her own life,
Mm.
they do have an anger. Like, why couldn't you tell us what's going on? Were you depressed? No, you weren't depressed at all. We never saw anything. So
Right.
why did this happen? And the other reason that I wrote the book was both my husband and I were in comedy and television, and we knew somebody who was working on a show, running the show, doing fantastic, we thought. And all of a sudden, we found out that he killed himself.
Oh
And
no.
it was, I'm sure his family knew why. We didn't find out till much later that he actually was very depressed. But you wouldn't
Hmm.
see that because he would go into a room, and I saw him not that much before he died. I saw him at a restaurant. I was like, hey, you guys, hi. He was one of those very kind of outgoing people.
Wow.
So you just thought and he was a comedy writer. So you just thought he was funny and on all the time. And so it shocked me. And he's not the only person that we knew that did that. So that was part of it. And part of it was also when Robin Williams killed himself. The world didn't know until later that he had Lewy body dementia and he was going through all these things. And in his mind, he was no longer Robin Williams.
Right.
So my first book deals with that a lot because I did a lot of research I did some seminars that Robin Williams' wife did and learned a lot about it, about Lewy body
Okay.
dementia and how people
Okay.
don't know they have it. So it was all combined into that too. I just thought, wow, the world had no clue that he was going through anything. So that's kind of where this sort of kind of came together, this book.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And I think that and that's so sad that
Mhm.
you didn't even know that your friend was sad. This
Had
comedy
no
writer
idea.
didn't even know. And there were no signs. And that's, because you always know about the ones that are dropping little seeds along the way and you pay attention to that. But if you have no clue, I mean, that's scary.
And that's why in that scene later on, when Abby says that Morgan gave her the necklace and she never knew
Mm.
why, because a lot of people
Right.
before they commit suicide, and you may not
Yes.
know this, like not see it happening, but they start to give things away.
Right. Yeah. Well, that is a really deep lesson theme throughout your book of paying attention to each other and what was going on with each of the characters for them to pick up what was happening, not just with themselves, but with each other. I mean,
Mhm.
that was so important. And one of the things also is that when there's so much pain that is left behind by our parents, often what we do is, we take on that shame that is passed down. And then we blame ourselves and question if there were things about us that caused us, caused our parents to make the decisions that they made. So
Right.
then you sit around and you wonder, did I do something? Was part of what happened, part of what, did I have anything to do with that?
Yeah, the sisters go through that too because in their mind, their mother was fine
Yeah,
and they cannot figure out why she would do this. So, yeah, they start to say, well, did I do something? Was it that one time I forgot to call her and she got so upset that I didn't
exactly.
call her that even stuff that doesn't really make sense. Like, your parents not going to take their own life because you didn't call for a week or two. But
Right.
those things come into your mind and the guilt and the shame and just the blame that they kind of
Hmm.
go through. And it took them through the book, they figure out, well, it really wasn't their fault at all. But it takes a little time to
Right.
kind of come to that realization.
Yeah, the three sisters do so well at crafting their new narratives, which they continually had to do. They just
Yes.
kept rewriting themselves after realizing their past wasn't who they really were. Can you talk more about that? Because it was so intriguing.
Oh, thank you. I tried to figure out how to do it without giving away spoilers, but
Yeah.
I think as the time goes on and they discover different things that were held from
Mm,
them that they never knew, they start to look at their own lives. And once they look
hmm
at their own lives, they realize the things they did, well, this isn't serving me anymore. And why was I doing this? Why did I stay in this relationship? Why didn't I find something outside of my kids to also fuel me? And
hmm
so they start to not like they react to all of these things that happen to them by looking into deeply and introspectively into their own lives and to see how things can change for them. And it takes them a while to change, but they also do really
Yes.
start to, for the first time, really start to look at it and figure it out.
Yes. Yeah. Their evolution, all three of them, and together, was such a beautiful part of the story. And one of the most powerful threads in the book is how each of them tried to break free from their parents' patterns. Abby probably, but they each all had parts of them wanting to be anything but them. They didn't want to be anything like their parents. And yet, as the story unfolds, we see how deeply those inherited stories live within them, even unconsciously. How did you approach writing the tensions between wanting to be different from their parents, but still carrying pieces of them?
Oh, that was hard. Because I that's partially why Carla's backstory is in there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see things that happened to Carla that's the mother
Yes.
that also
Right.
would kind of explain certain things with the girls.
Mm-hmm.
And they loved their mother. They had a great relationship with their mother.
Yes.
And the things that they knew about their mother, they really liked about themselves. They
Yes.
all had pieces of her in them. It was when they found out all this other stuff that they didn't really rebel against it, but they started to kind of go, well, wait a second, what is all this? And once I think they kind of come to a realization that their mother did the best she could. I mean, most parents do. We all do the best we can with our kids, and we all make mistakes. This mother made more mistakes than some parents, but the girls, I think, they never would have stopped loving her no matter what. And
Right.
that sticks with them. So even when they realize that they've made decisions based on something their mother did, they still want to keep, I think, the pieces of her that they loved. Her person, the things she did for them as a parent, and she was fun to be with, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I really loved that. I loved how once they were back in their childhood home too, the sisters slipped into their old ways. I mean, you know how many times it took me back. You know how many times we were standing across from somebody who they're from our childhood and we regress, right? I mean, that can happen. So what I loved is that when they went back to who they once were. They lived in that house, they slept in their own rooms, that they started to become those people again. And the bickering and the bonding and all that stuff that you kind of touched on a little bit ago. But because we so often, when we get into situations like that, I think it creates a different healing, a different layered of healing. Do you think that returning to their younger selves helped them find a different kind of closure or more of a closure?
Yes, partially because they all moved to different places. So they were
Okay.
close, but it really through, they visited each other. It's not the same as when you live in the same house with your parent and, you
Yes.
share rooms sometimes or you see each other every single day and in school. And those sisters did, once they got back in that house and back like to their old rooms, which hadn't changed that much, the two other
Mm-hmm.
rooms,
Mm-hmm.
and they did start to almost revert, not having like fights, but
Yeah.
arguments over some of the same stuff that they would have had arguments over when they were kids. And I think it's very normal to go back to your parents' house. My parents moved from their house, but for years they lived in the same house I grew up in. And we would walk back in, and even though my bedroom looked completely different and the, den looked different, I would walk in and feel this warmth and this comfort
Yes.
of being there. And my sisters and I are always the same like that too. Now, we don't have the house to go to, but when we get together, we are just in some ways like we were back then. We have a total
Hmm.
bond. We have the same memories and a lot of things, things that made us like dislike each other, so to speak, at the time, still come up as like, oh my God, I remember when you did that. I was so mad at you. But it's fun now. And I love that bond that the sisters have where they kind of do that.
Hmm.
And the
Hmm.
one thing that was really important to me in the book, which I kept re-editing because I wanted to make sure that whoever read it understood that they love each other, that they're not just picking at each
Yes.
other, that they have this bond with each other, that there's
Yes.
true love. Like in a relationship, if you say something to your, husband, wife, whoever, and you say something kind of snotty, and they go, well, that wasn't very nice. And you're like, oh yeah, you're right. You know what I mean? That you can come back from it. And
Yeah.
siblings, I think, have that bond where most siblings, I can't say all siblings, because I'm sure there are siblings that don't get along, but
Right. Well,
siblings who are truly bonded together, I think they do have that where you can say something to somebody and they can apologize and you kind of let it go, where you might not
right.
do that with a friend.
Right. Yeah, well, you definitely saw that in the book. I got that. I mean, even though they did bicker and they saw things differently a lot of times, they, if I can say, they went and rescued one of them when she was getting ready. To make a bad choice. And so they definitely had each other's backs, even if they didn't see things the same. And that's okay. I mean, that's the way siblings are.
Yeah.
So, and you have a scene in the book which I wanted to mention, and I don't think it's giving too much away, but Charlie was in an escape room,
Hmm.
and really, all of them had their own reality, they were trying to escape from something, and they all needed to answer those life-altering questions in order to figure out the next stage of their journey, which would then lead them to the next set of questions. So they were seeking to find their way out of this locked past, which they didn't even know that they had. And I mean, I think one of the worst things that can happen to any of us is to find out that your entire life was a lie and your parents were not who you thought that they were. So, one of my favorite questions in the book, and I have asked this question myself: how can I grieve you when all I feel right now is anger?
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's so tough. Tell me about this question.
Well, the way their mother did it, and when they found out all these things, of course they're going to go to anger. It's like, well, wait a minute. Who are we? We don't even know who we are, and we don't know
Yes,
who you are, and what of everything we know, what is true and what isn't. They had no idea really who their parents were.
exactly.
So the first thing you would really feel before you felt sad was, what the heck? Like, what did you do to us? We are in our
Right.
30s and we don't even know who we are. We don't know our life. And what do we trust? What do we trust about anything that's ever happened in our entire lives?
Yeah, because their mom lied about everything. She
Everything.
lied about everything.
Mhm.
And she was a good actress. I mean, she
Yeah. But
never,
she loved them. She lied about everything but loving them.
because yes. And see, that's the thing, is that we never know as parents what we will do when we want to protect our kids. How far will we go? Or what secrets will we tell to protect what we have? That was an interesting take on all of this. What did you think, Carla, the mom, did, and the decisions? What did you think about her decisions that she made as a mom?
I think for her, she told herself she was doing the best possible thing for everybody.
Mm,
And I think at the beginning, it's the best possible thing for her. But I think that as time goes on, she says, I'm protecting my kids. So it's in her head that she is actually taking care of everybody and making their lives better. And I think she
Okay.
lives with that forever. I think she has to go into a denial that she's denied them of anything. Because if she doesn't, then she will have the shame and the guilt. And I think she almost creates a new past for herself. And she
Yeah.
almost believes it. She gets to that point when there's a
Yeah.
point where she can't believe it anymore, but she gets to a point where she really believes and she thinks, this is our life. Our life is fine. My girls are
Yeah.
fine. They grew up. They're living their lives. They're doing what they need to do. And I've protected them from, the scary things of the world.
Yeah, I don't think that she ever thought that anybody would find out. I
No,
mean, they
she did
definitely
not.
had reached a stage in their life where that shouldn't have even happened.
Right.
But,
She was
something
very
happened.
private. She made sure that nobody ever found out. I mean, she wasn't on social media. She was very private and she didn't tell people things. So she created this other life and this other past for herself of things she made up.
Yeah, and she definitely wanted to be different from her parents, and she was,
She was.
I mean, she did everything different than her mom, and she showed up for her kids. She was there all the
Yes.
time.
She was there for
And
everything.
yeah, yeah, and she deeply loved them, and I don't think that her lies stemmed from anything but fear, maybe, and that's how it felt to me, is
Yeah.
that she had such a huge fear and a protection over her family that she was willing to do whatever it took.
And also because of her past and things that
Exactly.
happened in her past, she she got very scared when everything happened, and so that's why she had to do what she did.
Yeah. Right. I mean, trust is huge. And you raise a really good question. How will I ever trust anyone again when my own mother lied about the most important things? And I mean, I say all the time, how are we supposed to trust when the ones who are supposed to be protecting us are the ones who are hurting us, even if she didn't mean to, but
Right.
she did? And how can we trust what we see? How can we believe what people have told us? So, I mean, it brings a crazy making. So talk about betrayal.
Well, in this book, there's a lot of betrayal.
Oh, yeah.
They don't realize it at the beginning, but there's a lot of betrayal. And I think what you just said is if somebody does that to you, how do you trust not just like your parent, I mean, and your life, but anybody
Right.
else in your life? I mean, you go back
Exactly.
to the people in your life and you think, if there's a man in your life, you think, is that person, treating me right? Are they lying to me? Are they cheating on me? What are they doing? And even friends, I mean,
Hmm.
everything. And in Morgan's
Hmm.
case, I mean, alcohol, I mean, that was sort of, it kind of
Yeah.
betrayed her in some ways because it got her involved and then she had to give it up.
Right.
So there's a lot of different types of betrayal in this book.
Oh,
In
yes.
Abby's case, I think she feels not, I mean, she loves her kids more than anything, but I think she feels betrayed in some ways that she got pregnant so fast, because she didn't get to do
Yes.
her dream. So that's kind of a
Yeah.
betrayal of nature, or however you want to put it. So there is a lot of other ways that they're betrayed in their lives besides finding out that their mother betrayed them.
Yes. And then on the flip side of that, we have the person who was carrying the weight of the lies. And as a reader, it was powerful to watch Carla, the character who was navigating the consequences of her own deception, trying to keep up with the story that she built, while we, in hindsight, could see how each cover up and decision slowly steered her towards this heartbreaking outcome. And so, what was it like to write a character balancing that kind of inner conflict?
Well, I almost felt sorry for her the whole time, even though she
Mm,
had done this to her daughters, because I knew why she did it. But I felt sorry
yeah,
for her because to carry a secret like that and to go into another life and not be able to tell anybody. I mean, you are keeping such a big thing, and there's nobody else that you can
right.
really tell all these secrets to, and you're closest to your daughters and you're keeping a very private life even with the friends she had. She kept everything at a distance. So if you're living your life like that, you don't get close to anybody, and you can only get so close to your daughters because you're lying to them. So you can
Mm,
love them and you can be part of their lives, but you can't let them know who you really are. So I
Right.
kind of, when I was writing it, I was trying to do it with empathy and compassion for her and everything she was going through also. And I didn't want her to be the bad guy because really she's not. She made bad
Right.
decisions, but she's not a
Yeah.
bad person in any way, shape, or form. And she's really actually a good person who did
Yes.
all this. And sometimes decisions are made from people and it doesn't make them bad people. It just makes them bad decisions. And they
Yeah.
can have the best reason in the world for making these decisions, but that doesn't mean they're good decisions. And
Yeah.
so I kind of just kept looking at her character and building her past to make sense why certain things had happened, and why she had made certain decisions, and mostly just felt compassionate for her.
Yeah, I did too. You did a great job in writing
Oh,
that
thank you.
because I think a reader could have looked at that differently and said, oh, look at all these things that she did to her family. This is really horrible. But at the same time that the story was unfolding and that you were finding out more and more what the lies that she had told and why, you really felt for her. I felt compassion for her. I felt so many things for her. I was mad that she
Yeah.
made the decisions that she made in the moment, but I can also see why she left this area because, she was afraid. I could see why she felt that she had to take her family with her and why she created what she did. It really makes sense to me. And I don't know. I asked myself, would I have done that in this if I was in the same situation? I mean, it brought me to that question with my own kids. I don't know what we would do if we are in that situation.
I don't either, because as parents, we think, well, we would protect our kids no matter what.
I think that trumps everything.
Yeah, but it's still scary. And what she did was scary. I mean, it's not like she did something like, yay, I'm going, I'm doing this. She was
Right.
terrified and scared
She
about everything
was.
she did.
And she did finally let somebody in. She had that one friend that from the real
Yes.
estate, and
Jenny,
she,
yeah.
in a drinking moment, she told her some things. And, I was glad that she had that. And I was glad that they found, and I loved how her kids' paths led her to this woman where some of those things were answered for her, which started the whole entire investigation, which I thought was really great. But I'm glad that it unfolded the way that it did. So she did let that person in. She kept so many people away, but she let that one person in and they found her. And I thought that was great.
Yeah. No, the girls knew who she was because they knew their
Right.
best friend in, where they were in Los Angeles. But I needed somebody to give them some information also. So I thought if
Yeah.
Carla has given something, not a lot, but something to this woman, then at least she can relay something to kind of send them on a path.
You asked the question, and this one hit me pretty hard too. How do you forgive a dead person? I mean, I've asked that question
Yeah.
because there is somebody in my life who, made a lot of really bad choices and they're no longer here. So, how do you forgive a dead person?
I think it's very individual. And I think that it's something that it's actually for you to forgive. It's obviously not, has nothing to do with them at that point.
Right.
But I think it's really a process. I think it takes a long time. I think as you go through time, you start to remember the good things. If this person did have good things, I think there are people that cannot be forgiven. I'm sure there are millions of people out there that, you would never forgive.
It's
But
it's different,
somebody
yeah.
like Carla, I think they could forgive her because they knew all the other things that she did for them and how much she loved
Mm.
them and how much she was there for them. And so the initial thing is, I'm never going to forgive you. I can't believe you did this to me. But they all acknowledge that they obviously loved her so much that they would have gotten through that. They would have worked
Hmm.
through it, whether it was in therapy or with, their partners or whoever, but they would have worked through it and come out on the other end where they started to see all the good memories and not
Yeah.
just what she did.
And without giving too much away, I do want to ask you this question, and I have a few more questions after this, but I really needed to ask you, who were you more like without, and people are going to have to read the book for them to know to understand your answer, but were you more like Morgan, Charlie, or Abby?
Oh, wow. Probably if I had to pick one, probably. Abby, only because I gave up something that I really loved
Mm,
to go be with my kids. So that's the only thing. Like I said before, because of having sisters, and I did not want this book to have anything to do with any of us,
exactly.
including
Yeah.
myself. So I think it'd probably be Abby, just because I've always sort of mourned my old career. And even though I love what I'm doing now, I still, working in television was just such a blast for me, and I really enjoyed it. So I think that's why I talk about grief. I think there's different grief at different points of your life, whether or not it's a person dying. It could easily be just giving up a job and learning. Like at first, you're like angry, like, why can't I do that? And then it's like, okay, but I'm choosing to do this for my kids who need me. I'm making the decision to give that up. So it's a process, but there is also anger and sadness and something like that too.
Yeah. I too gave up some work in order to be home with my kids that I got. And then COVID happened and I have an immunodeficient kid
Mm,
and, pivot, pivot, pivot. That's what we do and we
yeah,
figure it out. But I think I think I related a little bit with each of them. I think that there was a piece of me that related with each of them in a different way.
that's
So,
interesting.
and it was very relatable with all of them, and even with Carla being the mom and the decisions that she made. So, but every page was very life-changing for the girls with a different problem, and they had to work through together, like we said, kind of. And they really had to figure out how to move on past nonstop, devastating news and loss. And I love the constant evolution of self. I love the resilience. This was such a perfect example of how no matter how hard things get, that we can sustain and come out stronger. Was that something that you were going with this?
Yes, I wanted to make sure at the end of the book, when I went back, that all these women, they
Yes.
changed, but they changed for the better. And they
Yes.
figured out what was the best thing for them. And not, I didn't want characters that didn't change and just went, oh, well, I'm angry or whatever. I wanted them each to go through a journey within themselves. Like even when they go home to their own lives, you see them kind of moving towards a different place. And that's really what I wanted, was them each to change in a way where they have that aha moment where they say, "Oh, wow, I can, do a little bit more than this, or I
Mm.
can, move on from this relationship or whatever those things are, or I can stay sober."
Yeah. And forgiveness is such a powerful thread. And it felt like it was the underlying heartbeat in this story. And it
Yes.
was a quiet, but and it was a quiet, powerful reminder that healing takes time. And what really struck me was how differently each character approached forgiveness. Some leaned in, one leaned in, one resisted, and one took her time. And I think that that's such an important lesson. Forgiveness is a choice and there's no one timeline. Each of the sisters wrestled with their unresolved anger and emotions. What did you want readers to take away about the power and the challenge of forgiveness when it comes to family wounds?
Well, first of all, I want people to take away that they forgive themselves also,
Hmm,
because forgiving their parent is one thing that's almost outside of you. It's like over
right.
here, and you're trying to go and forgive them over here and have all those
Yeah,
emotions. But they all also needed to forgive themselves, because
right.
once they realized why they made these choices, they needed to say, oh, well, I made these choices not necessarily because I just made the choice. I made it based on a past that wasn't necessarily true. So I need to forgive myself for making bad choices also, besides
Mm-hmm.
forgiving their mother.
Yes,
So I wanted
yes,
to make that really clear inside of them, that they also needed
right.
to go through this process to forgive themselves for not
Yes,
standing up to something or whatever that was, because that was based. I mean, they were very, very young when their mothers started all this. So they weren't developed enough, to
right.
make any real big choices. So
Yeah,
they didn't realize why they were making these choices. And that's what I thought I wanted to do mostly, was make people realize that something over here can make you do something over here that you don't realize why you're doing it. But it's based
right.
on something else. And
Yes,
so they needed to forgive themselves and forgive her for making these decisions and realizing that she did it for them.
Yes, and you also explore like how the pain, the self-forgiveness that they had to work on, how that manifested in other ways, like addiction, substance use, like relationships,
Mhm.
control. And so can you talk about how you wove the self-forgiveness and different forms of coping into this story and what you hope readers take from that?
Well, everybody copes differently. So
Yeah,
that's why I wanted the three sisters to be pretty different, similar in some ways, but pretty different, and watch the way they cope and watch, like you said before, that Morgan almost falls off the wagon and the sisters save her.
right,
And, just like Morgan's coping is alcohol. And I'm sure that a lot of people who are alcoholics would go there, would say like, well, God, everything's up in the air. Why don't I just take this? What's the point in doing anything?
right.
And in Charlie's case, her coping was just to kind of stay with the same person and just make her life as comfortable as possible without taking. None of the women really took a lot of risks, if you really look at
Mm-hmm.
it, even though, because Morgan hid
That's,
behind alcohol, Charlie took no risks, Abby took no risks. She kind of married the guy and had the kids and kind of stayed in that little place.
yeah.
So I want readers to see a couple of things. I want them to realize they're not alone in whatever their feelings are, whether they discover a big family secret. I mean, I'm sure that doesn't happen every day, but there are little things in our life that happen every day. And
Mm-hmm.
so I want readers to really, for all my books, I always want readers to see that they're not alone, that
Mm,
things happen that they can relate to and say, oh, wow, like you said,
yeah.
you related a little bit to each one of them. If a reader can find anybody in the book that they relate to, that makes me so happy. And I've gotten some emails and things from people that said, my parent actually killed themselves. And this, I,
Oh,
I didn't know if anybody would read it if that was the case, but I had people say, thank you so much, because this actually helped me watch them go through the journey to figure all this out. And I thought,
okay.
wow, that made me feel so good because you don't know if somebody's going to read it and go, oh my God, I can't believe you wrote this, or, you never know. And the people have been so great and said really nice things and related to a lot of the women.
Yeah, I've had a lot of those different, not suicide, but I've had a lot of the themes that we talked about and the lessons that we talked about today. I've had a lot of those things happen in my life. And sometimes I can't go there in a book because it's too hard.
Yeah.
But this was written in a way that was very inviting, and it was okay to come out on the other side. It really was. It was really well done. One of the things that I also saw in myself was that they all stayed stuck. They just stayed stuck, and
Hmm.
they stayed stuck for too long. And
Because they didn't make risks, they didn't take risks, and neither did their mother. They learned that.
yes, but I loved that journey and how they figured out how to get unstuck.
They weren't
Are
really living their lives in a lot of ways. And just same as
no,
their mother, Carla wasn't living her life. And they sort of picked all of that up, even if they didn't realize it.
right. Are there any themes in the book that we haven't covered that you want our listeners to know?
I think you covered them all. I think you did an amazing job. You pulled out stuff, the escape room I never came up with. When you said that, I was like, oh, wow, that never occurred to me. I just like thought of the place and thought, oh, that would be kind of an interesting place to do a scene in. But when you said that about escape, I thought, wow, that really hit me.
They were living the life that little scene was actually the entire book in like a couple paragraphs.
Which I never realized till you said it. See, that's what I love is like a reader tells you something. I've had readers say things about my book that I know I didn't intend, but when they say it's there, I see it and I think, wow, where did that come from? Because it wasn't something in my mind. So I love that you said that. That just made me so happy.
That's so cool. Yeah, because they asked questions which led them to another, which they broke free this, and then they had to go to another
Yeah,
level of their life, and then they get out on the other side.
that's true. You're right. It is. It's so funny that I didn't even think of it the way you saw that. That's so cool.
How can listeners get a hold of you? And I got it, my book on Amazon. So, and I saw your other books. I already started another one. But yeah, how can they get a hold of you or read your books?
My books are available everywhere, but yes, Amazon has them. They can go to my website. It's leslierasmussen.com. And I also have signed books on there too that they can buy, and
Oh,
I sign
I
a
might
book.
have to do that.
And then I'm on Instagram at Leslie R. Author. I'm on Facebook at Leslie A. Rasmussen Author. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm pretty much everywhere. Also, the audiobook of When People Leave will be out next month.
Okay. Well, that's great. Well, thank you, Leslie, for being on the show. When people leave, a story of love, lies, and finding the truth isn't just a novel, it's a mirror, a reminder that behind every perfect family photo is a layered story of survival, silence, and sometimes secrets that we're still trying to understand. To our listeners, if you've ever felt like your family's story was too complicated to talk about, you're not alone. And if grief ever left you asking questions with no answers, you're not broken. And if you've ever wondered whether healing was possible after the truth comes out, this story proves that it is. This is a novel that relates to us all, and it has so many lessons that we can take from it. When change becomes what we need, lean into it. Allow the hard work so you can step into growth. Invite transformation and let yourself evolve. Own the shift. Let it become the catalyst. Get Leslie's book and her other two novels, After Happily Ever After and The Stories We Cannot Tell. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us. Share this episode with someone who needs it. Remember, there is purpose in the pain and hope in the journey. Subscribe to Real Talk with Tina and Ann, and we will see you next time.
World changers aren't pleasing everybody. They're just not.
Next time.